How many quarters have we been checking in with? It's Budro Partida and John Jew are two longtime Austinites. They also happen to be filmmakers, and one of the projects that they have signed on to, which I think is, I believe, Bob, is this called a passion project?
Yeah.
When you accidentally go, oh crap, we have a way of making a living, and we decided to do this side project, and now it has taken all of our blood, our guts, our glory, everything has sucked it out of us for this damn thing, and instead of it lining our pockets like all the other things that we do, this one is just sucking us dry. But battered, bruised. You got to remind me, what do we have before the last days of the back room? What do we call it? What have we landed on as the title for the documentary?
It is Bloody and Bruised.
Bloody and Bruised, and it's about the back room. And we know from reports that we see, statistical reports, that approximately 50% of all of our listeners have been here for less than 5 years.
Oh, wow.
5. I would have guessed like 10 years, but 50% of our listeners have been here less than 5 years, which means that even at 10 years, they would have at least heard of the back room. But now at 5 years, that's enough time removed from the back room that for those folks, it's probably not even in their lexicon, in their lore. What is the back room for the folks that are uninitiated?
Well, the back room was kind of this East Side music venue that was kind of considered like the redheaded stepchild of a lot of the music venues. Mainly rock, mainly heavy metal, a lot of punk, a lot of hardcore. And towards the later days, it was into like the whole hip hop rap scene kind of thing. But, you know, it was kind of considered like not the most popular venue amongst the music scene.
Well, metal was a smaller culture then, right?
The music scene here, and the music scene that would have flourished, or at least that had the attention of like the alternative, which would have been the Chronicle at the time, was a lot more like, let's call it like experimental. Also, the singer-songwriters, things like that got the attention, but certainly metal didn't, right? Because metal has never been really the place for the student council popular kids. Metal has always attracted the outsiders. That's the whole culture of metal and rock, I think. Am I wrong there?
No. And much like, you know, being marginalized like that, the back room physically itself was on East Riverside.
And East Riverside is now a million apartments, and there's fancy. But East Riverside in that day and age, the 80s and 90s, it was not a no-go zone. I don't think Austin's ever had no-go zones, but it was certainly not a place that, like, people weren't coming from out of town and people going, oh, you got to go check out East Riverside. Like, now they'll go, hey, you got to go South Congress, or you got to go to Rainey. Two other places that also weren't really places that you went in the 80s and 90s. But, you know, back then, you just didn't go to East Riverside, really. It was considered sketch at night, right? And then also, it was just a lot of bedroom communities, so there wasn't anything to be offered over there. It wasn't like there were a bunch of clubs.
A bunch of college kids.
It was college kids. It was blue-collar workers. I think at one time, and I don't know if it intersected with the back room, but military. When Bergstrom was an Air Force base, was very close, so there were a lot of military young guys were living off of Riverside, Old Torf in that area, and so it was a big convergence of all kinds of different cultures and people over there.
And not only that, on the other side of the complex was another club that existed at the same time that changed names throughout the years, that's now Come and Take It Live, who had a different crowd that was over there. So there were two different crowds in the same block doing two different things at night. And a lot of people stayed away from that area, but a lot of people that knew about it and that it fit right into their liking, they would go out there.
It wasn't very polished, you know. It was kind of a little rough.
Well, it was rough, but it felt like a real Midwest or East Coast bar in that it had like pinball machines. It had lots of tattoos before everyone had tattoos, and I think, you know, that was a time when people could still be scared of tattoos.
Oh yeah.
Piercings. Which you guys I see are representing quite well. Black T-shirts, all that stuff, and so it was. And it, like you said, and I think you brought it up, it was great. It was the stepchild of the music scene.
Yeah.
But some of the best shows I saw ever in this city were at the back room. But every time you were there, you always thought anything could go down right now. It had a feel, but it also had a community feel. It's a weird anomaly. You guys, why did you decide to make this documentary?
Man, I actually used to live right off of Burton Drive, right off between Old Torf and Riverside. And
I lived on Old Torf.
Years ago, I was, it was one of the first bars, if not the first bar I went to in Austin when I first moved here in the late 90s. And great place, had, cheap drinks, arcade, live music venue. Yeah, there's a little bit of drugs going on, but whatever, And it was just an amazing, awesome place, community, and the people were just great. You could walk in there with not knowing anybody. You walk out with 5-10 friends, and so I really wanted to kind of make sure that this place wasn't forgotten. I'm big on music venues and going to music shows, and I wanted to make sure that this place wasn't forgotten. So I got along with John Jew here and a couple of the crew members, and we decided to make a film about it and make a documentary.
You've been working on this for quite some time.
Yeah.
It was hard, but once you started this conversation, you started finding out that there were other people that are like, oh, I have... This is before this club closed before everyone carried a video camera in their back pocket called a phone, right?
Yeah.
There were no iPhones, there were no Galaxies, any of that. So trying to find archival footage is next to impossible because who was carrying a camera around in those days?
Yeah.
But slowly you started finding out that there was some house video or some band would have shot some of their footage, and you slowly had to go out there and find all that stuff. And so what started as kind of like a little short project grew and grew and grew and grew and grew, and it grew into this a monster
film
that you were having to try to tame the entire time.
Oh, yeah. I mean, man, we've been working on this for almost 4 years, and we have literally thousands of flyers, photos, video clips that either people submitted or, that we found either through archive footage or, Dave Pruitt, who was big on Capsize, he supplied a huge amount of archive footage. But yeah, we had to research and get all these photos and just different elements that we could use in the film, because this film spans the entire 33-year history of the club.
Now, you guys also have day jobs. It's in the film and broadcast and entertainment world, but this particular passion project is not the one that's pouring in the funds. So you're having to work late nights, you're having to work weekends. Where does it stand right now?
As far as the project, we're trying to get through the music rights, which is going through a music supervisor out of New York that figures all that out for us, and reaching out to the labels of the bands whose music we use in the film. And once we complete that, that's one big paycheck that's going out from our funds, and then we have to master the film, which at this current moment it's not mastered. So we're going to get to, it's well done, but what you do is when you have different cameras, so many different aspects to the film, then it has to all be blended together. So
so right now what we're hearing, like,
you're talking about colors
are different. The sound is different going from one clip to the next or whatever. But are you picture locked now?
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
And so we have a final film.
You have a film. It doesn't sound the way you want to. And if you try to put this in a theater, someone's going to sue you. Or they could. They could find that way. So those are the hurdles that you have to get over. But you're at a point now where you are starting to invite people to check out the movie.
Yes, we actually are hosting a couple of private screenings, so that we can actually, we're going to have like a little bit of a press screening, and then we're going to have a couple of cast and crew screenings, and so we're here to, let some people know about that.
That's awesome. There's a screening tonight.
There's a screening tonight.
We actually have a pair of tickets we can get somebody into, and this is like a red carpety. This is the first. This is the big debut. They're bringing the bitch out for the first time tonight, right?
Oh man,
this is the first time ever that anyone's going to see the film outside of our little circle.
And are you guys excited?
Yeah, dude. I'm like
very excited.
I'm excited. I'm nervous. I'm scared and amazed all at the same time.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, it's like 4 years of work, like tireless, endless work, thankless work sometimes.
Try 33.
And you're just like, it's basically you're pouring your heart and soul into this one film that a bunch of people are going to see in a big-ass theater, and we got some special guests showing up. So, like, a lot of Austin musicians and certain other folks, some media folks, and, they're going to see this film for the first time, and hopefully, I'm really proud of it. I think it's going to go over well. Now it's just a matter of, hey, we just got to bottle the top and get it finished, paid for, and out the door so that we can get it through the festival run for the rest of 2024.
There are going to be some other screenings after South by settles down. There'll be some screenings, and in those screenings, there may be some more seats available to some of our listeners. I think, right?
There will be.
You know, we have a ton of listeners who not only lived through that time, but went there. They either went there to play pool or pinball, or they went there to see a band, or they went there just to drink and meet buddies. And I think they would love. I mean, to me, the most amazing thing, and some of the little bits that I've seen, is just. It's very nostalgic to see some of the camera stuff and go, oh, look at that. Like, it's, you know what I mean? Because I have a memory when I close my eyes of exactly what that place. Well, before what it looked like, I can also smell it before I can see it, if that makes sense about that place. There was always like a weird kind of stale beer and Fabuloso smell about it. Yeah. And, But when I saw some of the footage inside, I remember we always talk about the pole because they were famous.
Right in the middle of the stage.
It was famous that it just had this pole to hold the building up, but was in the worst place ever for a music venue, right?
Yeah. I wonder how many guitar necks were snapped on that thing.
Know.
Where some guy
we have people talking about that in
spin around and hit.
But what's funny is when I imagine where the pole is. I saw some footage from you guys, and I was like, "Oh, that's not where my memory has the pole." And it was fun to
off to the as you look at the stage, off to the right slightly, like at 1 o'clock. Is that
but
right?
it's kind of off to the left a little bit, isn't it?
Now I don't.
It's we
see that we keep moving the pole around in our memories.
See, and then the thing is that we had to do some reenactments. We did some reenactments that of stage performances that we actually found a place that kind of looks like the back room. So, and there is a pole, but it's just slightly different. It's just slightly off.
That's fine.
But yeah, man, I mean, that pole, we have a whole scene of people talking about that pole. It was a place that really formed a sense of community and a family.
Well, let me why is this documentary important to you? And why should the documentary be important to all of Austin?
Well, I think it's definitely important to me because I'm number one, first and foremost, a music fan, and on top of that, a metal and punk fan. So this place was really big to me. John used to book shows there.
I used to book bands there, so I had a little insight from the inside world. I had a lot of friends that worked there. I had friends that would rehearse there because they worked there, and then they would play there almost every weekend. And I spent a lot of time there. So
and so did the rest of our core team. So and I think it's important for people to see how hard these bands worked back in a non-digital era. And when you had to make the flyers, everything was DIY. You had to go to different. You would promote your show by going to other shows and handing out flyers and demos, and just to see how everything was not just a click. How people actually had to work so that they can make a name for themselves in this town, on top of being in East Riverside.
I do miss the look of this city. What Austin looked like when every single pole was covered in 8.5 by 11 handmade Xeroxed flyers.
Yeah.
You would go to 7-Eleven anywhere in this city because everyone would do the same thing. They would make 50 copies that they were going to go paste up, but they would forget the OG copy in the copier. And I remember always going to any 7-Eleven, and you would open it up, and there was always a band flyer in there that was, I never was smart enough to go, I should start collecting all the ones I find in there, and you could make a tumbler out of just that right alone. But it is a big part of the city and the city's story, and I'm excited that you guys did
Thank
it.
you.
So we have a pair. Do we have a pair that we can give away,
Absolutely.
or is it for tonight, or
it's for tonight?
It's for tonight.
Well, here's what we're going to do. I'm not going to give them to somebody who's just going to say, I want them. There has to be a reason that they're going, and they have to convince us. If you want to try to go, you can call us right now. Okay, here's the deal: 512-834-0937. 512-834-0937. Where is the screening?
Alamo Drafthouse, South Lamar.
You have to call us right now and try to convince us why you should get this pair of tickets, because they're not going to go out to someone who's just the first caller or the seventh caller. We have to know that your asses are going to be there. We have to know why it can happen.
Are you worth it?
Yeah. Are you?